Good morning.
This way, Governor. This way, Senator Margaret.
Howard Glazer, Director of Operations for Governor Cuomo of the state of New York. Our major focus in the last 24 hours has been food and fuel distributions, as well as getting the transportation and power systems up and running. The Governor will have a number of announcements today and updates on those subjects. In addition, here with us this morning, you'll hear from the Governor, from MTA Chairman Joe Lhota. Senator Chuck Schumer is with us. Margaret Purvis, the CEO of the Food Bank. We're also joined here by Jerry Hauer, New York State Commissioner of the Department of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. Governor Cuomo.
Thank you very much. I want to thank all the volunteers who have come out today to help in this food distribution. Let me give you a brief update on a number of fronts. This entire situation is going to go on for a while, but we want to keep New Yorkers informed, especially during this immediate critical period. When it comes to power, we are making significant progress. All of the power in Manhattan has been restored. That doesn't mean that every building everywhere has power, but downtown Manhattan has power restored, every network except one. Overall in the metropolitan area, 60% of the people who lost power have had the power restored, and we are under 900,000 people now without power in the metropolitan area. Long Island, which was the hardest hit when it came to loss of power, about 550,000 people are still without power. That's down from 1.2 million people initially. Now, I've warned the utility companies repeatedly that they operate under a state charter, a state franchise, essentially, and that we were going to monitor very closely the utility companies' performance. The utility companies aren't happy with my warning, but frankly, I don't care. The customers aren't happy, and the bill payers aren't happy, and the people without power aren't happy. And they pay their bills and they expect power, and the state expects these companies to have been prepared for this type of emergency, and their performance is, they're going to be held accountable for their performance. Now, we understand that this was possibly the greatest storm that has hit the metropolitan area in decades. I get it, and we're reasonable, but I want them to get what I'm saying also. People need their power back. This is not just a power outage. This is a power outage in the aftermath of a storm. People are suffering. It's an issue of safety, and we want these utility companies doing everything they have to do. And if they weren't prepared, the state will hold them accountable. In terms of subway service, 80% of the subway service has been restored. That is literally in under 1 week. 80% of the subway service has been restored from what was horrendous damage and the worst damage that the subway system had ever seen that people can remember, and 80% is back. So that is just a great, great job. The service between Brooklyn and Queens and Manhattan is being restored immediately. The 4, 5, 6, and 7 train will immediately begin to run. The F, the J, the D, the M will run later this afternoon. The Staten Island Railway will have limited service beginning later today. The entire MTA team really did an extraordinary job. They've been working straight. I don't know how many of them are even on their feet. I've been seeing them 24 hours a day. And not only did they try hard, but they actually got the job done. And the MTA has a great leader in Joe Lhota, and I really applaud him and his work. As a matter of fact, let's give him a round of applause, Joe Lhota, who's here with us today. World Trade Center site was frightening. You know, the World Trade Center site is still under construction. It's right near the Hudson River, and at the cresting of the tide on Monday night, the Hudson River was basically pouring into the World Trade Center site. I was there to see it myself. The World Trade Center site had 28 feet of water in the bottom. The memorial was flooded. The museum underneath the memorial was flooded. The pumping of the World Trade Center site has been completed, and the World Trade Center site is now basically dry. The memorial is still flooded. Pumping will continue, and we expect by the end of today, the memorial will be fully pumped out. In terms of food, we are continuing the food distribution. We will have about 1 million meals distributed over the next couple of days in totality. And I thank again all the not-for-profit organizations that are helping us do this distribution. This is a massive undertaking. The National Guard are the backbone of the effort, but we also have not-for-profits and volunteers showing up all throughout the metropolitan area to help with the distribution, and we thank them very much. I also want to thank the President, who granted a request that we made, which will increase people's food stamp allocation for the month by 50%. In other words, a lot of people lost their food. Let's give President Barack Obama a round of applause for that. But a lot of people lost food. Food was spoiled. They couldn't get to the stores. The stores didn't have the food, so there'll be a 50% allocation, increase in the allocation. That's $65 million, and that's a major benefit. Again, I want to thank the National Guard for all their hard work in this distribution. I spoke with the Connecticut governor this morning, Governor Malloy. Connecticut was not as badly hit as our state, and Connecticut is going to be redeploying a lot of their assets to New York State to help us get up, and we thank the Connecticut governor and the people of Connecticut. Fuel has been an issue. I can report that 8 million gallons of fuel have been delivered. We have been working with the Coast Guard. I had the Coast Guard with us yesterday, and they said that the port was open and the tankers were being released, and that's what had slowed down the delivery of the fuel, was tankers being held in the harbor. Coast Guard released those tankers. The tankers have been moving through the system, so 8 million gallons have been delivered. 28 million gallons will be delivered over the next 2 days. So you'll see quickly a real abatement in that pressure on the fuel system. The Department of Defense is going to be making available mobile fuel stations in 5 locations in the metropolitan area to distribute gasoline. They'll have a 10-gallon limit. The good news is it's going to be free, so we thank them very much. I also want to thank the Senator Chuck Schumer, who has been a great advocate for us in getting many things from the, let's give him a round of applause, in helping with getting things from the federal government by and large, but especially on this fuel delivery issue. The senator has been really helpful. I also want to say to New Yorkers, do not panic. I know there was anxiety about fuel, and sometimes you see a long line at the gas station. It makes you more nervous, and you see people lining up, and you say, should I be lining up? We did have a shortage in fuel delivery because the tankers were not delivering, because the tankers were held in the harbor. That situation has been remedied. Gas stations will be getting fuel. There'll be a slight reduction in the amount of fuel they're getting because the entire delivery system isn't up. Some places don't have power, etc. But fuel is on its way. You don't have to panic. We don't need the anxiety. We don't need the lines. Be prudent, but fuel is on the way. Last point is this. I know the numbers will show progress, and 60% of the people have power restored. That doesn't mean a lot if you're the person who doesn't have power. And I understand it's nice that we delight in our neighbors' success when you see their lights go on, and our sense of community is strong. But until you have your lights on, you're not happy. I get it. I understand. And we're not going to stop until we have every house, every home has their power restored. We are making progress. I want you to know everyone is doing everything they can in a very difficult circumstance. I was on the phone with the President again this morning. The President had his whole cabinet assembled, and literally we went down a list of what we needed here in New York, and the President was assigning tasks to the people on his cabinet. We're on the phone hourly. We have volunteer networks out here. The National Guard has been out. The MTA has been working. The utility companies are working as hard as they can. And as you know, I'm going to hold them accountable every hour of every day until the last New Yorker has their power on. But this was truly a crisis, and this is one of the worst storms that has hit this metropolitan area in generations. So it really is a situation that requires patience and requires the strength and the resilience that New Yorkers are famous for. And I'm asking them once again, little patience, little resilience, little sense of community, care about your neighbor. We are getting through it. The worst is behind us. It's not going to be over in 24 hours, but the arrows are pointed in the right direction, and we'll be working every hour until it's fully done. With that, let me turn it over to Joseph Loda, who will give you more specifics on the update on the MTA. Thank you.
Thank you, Governor. Thank you, Governor. As the Governor mentioned, service began this morning at 10 o'clock on the 4, the 5, the 6, and the 7 trains. But most importantly, 81%, a little over 80% of our service will be back throughout today. More will come back tomorrow as well as Monday overall. I think it's important to know that it's been broad-ranging. All boroughs are now connected, and Staten Island Railroad has started as well at 10 o'clock this morning. I do want to talk a little bit about the MTA workers. I do want to talk about Tom Prendergast, the president of the Transit Authority, and his leadership in allowing and providing the men and women who work there the opportunity to get the job done. I have never met people so dedicated and so much in love with what they do. And I think New Yorkers should understand they have been working around the clock really 3 days before Sandy hit us, and they've done a phenomenal job, and they've gotten New York back on its feet again. I'd also like to thank our customers. I'd like to thank them for their understanding as we were able to put this system back together piece by piece. They've been great. We learned from the first day how to do a bus bridge. God hoping we don't have a need to do it again, but it'll be, we're prepared for anything. So with that, we will be having more technical briefings later on today. Our website, mta.info, has all of the information online with new maps, and we encourage all New Yorkers to come on out and use the system. I'd also like to also not only just thank the Transit Authority, but the men and women, both of Metro North, of the Long Island Railroad, of Bridges and Tunnels, the MTA Bus Company, MTA Capital Construction. It's been all hands on deck. They've done a great job. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And first, I'd like to thank the governor and his whole team for the great job they have done. You know, in federal disasters, the way it's supposed to work, the federal government has the resources, more resources than a state or a locality. But those resources can't be used and distributed unless there are hands on the ground. And the governor, the mayors, the local officials know that better. And oftentimes when there's a disaster, Katrina was an example, the baton doesn't get passed very well between the federal and state governments. Here it passed seamlessly. And the kind of resources that the feds are able to provide are getting to people quickly because of the great work that we have seen done here by the governor and his team in just about every aspect. And a round of applause to them and Joe Loda and the whole MTA. This is an example. We had a million meals. We had hundreds of thousands of liters of water at the federal level. How do you distribute it? The state has done a great job using its resources and those of the food banks to distribute it quickly. And the food, I've been to the Rockaways and Breezy Point and Southern Brooklyn, and it's getting out there. Hot meals for people. It's great. I'm here just to augment a little bit about what the governor said about gasoline and fuel. It's another example of the feds having the resources and the state and local implementing it well and quickly. First, I should say that my wife called me Thursday night on a gas line every half hour. She called me 5 times and said, "What are you doing about this?" So this is an answer to my wife as well as the other millions of New Yorkers who are involved. Both the governor and I spoke early yesterday with Leon Panetta because the Defense Department has they have to fuel their troops in every place, in every corner. And we asked him to provide some resources, and he jumped right to the occasion very quickly. Panetta was my roommate for 11 years, so I knew I could count on him. We shared a little row house in Washington when we were both congressmen. So last night we were called by Assistant Secretary of Defense Alan Estevez. He's in charge of logistics and material reform. And here's what's happening. DOD is sending 12 million gallons of fuel for the general public. That's a lot of fuel. The fuel will be here this weekend. It's being trucked up so we don't have to go through our damaged ports. The governor and I had great teamwork in getting the Coast Guard to open the ports quickly. They were going about it very carefully, but very slowly, and that's what caused the problem to begin with when ships couldn't get in. So they're going to truck it up, and that makes a great deal of sense. They're going to be providing 3 types of services. One, they're going to have trucks that go to gas stations throughout New York City and Long Island that have electricity but no gas, and they will give them the gasoline. Second, they are providing with FEMA generators, and they will go to gas stations. There are many that have fuel but no electricity. About 70% of the gas stations on Long Island are in that situation. They have no electricity. And they will give them generators so they can pump the fuel they have. And third, as the governor mentioned, they're going to provide 5 trucks, and they will be going to armories on Long Island, Brooklyn, Queens, I think it is. Again, the state chooses, the Army provides the trucks, DOD provides the trucks, the state chooses the location, that's how it should be. And they're going to be going to 5 locations on Long Island, Brooklyn, and Queens. I don't think there's one in Manhattan, I'm not sure. Staten Island is the other one. And there, those trucks have both fuel and electricity, and you can actually fuel up there, get 10 gallons for free. And those locations will be distributed. We don't urge everybody to go to those because there'll be lines even longer than at the gas stations and others. But if you need to and you don't have anything else nearby, please do it. We also learned the good news, maybe the best news of all for the long term. We get a huge amount of our gasoline through Linden, New Jersey. That's a huge refinery. That Linden, New Jersey terminal lost its power. Its power is now back on. They have to figure out if it's working, if it got other damage in the storm, and if the pier that boats go to Linden is still working. But Linden should be back on time soon, and that will solve the problem in the long run. There's also, as I think was mentioned, a 2 million gallon barge that's on its way to Newburgh and sending gas here. And I've already heard that Westchester, that happened late yesterday, and Westchester is getting our gas. So, in the bottom line, and I just want to echo what the governor said a little bit, this was a body blow to New York. The worst natural disaster New York has experienced. It was a blow to the stomach. And you know, everyone says, why didn't this happen? Why didn't that happen? This was an unexpected storm. And it's true. Certain groups, certain people, certain institutions did not prepare for it adequately. But once the storm hit, I have never seen a better response. And it's a huge undertaking. You can't snap your fingers and the day after the storm say everything is going back to normal. But it's going back rather quickly. We're seeing great progress every day. And we say to the people on the gas lines, you'll feel relief soon. The lines will get shorter, hot tempers will cool, the prices will go down, and your normal commutes will resume. It won't happen all at once, but it'll happen in the very near future. And that is probably true throughout all of these issues that we're talking about. I went Thursday morning when Joe Lhota had set up the bridge bus, is that what you call it? The bridge bus at Barclays Center. I spent about an hour shaking hands with the people waiting online. Now, these are not the people Friday who just walked right through. They were waiting for an hour, first day back to work. They were strong, they were resilient, they weren't happy, but they were New Yorkers and they knew we'd get through it. And it was a great symbol of what we're all about. We'll be back stronger and better than ever. And I think, at least up to now, this recovery effort will be regarded as one that other places can use as a model when they're hit with a 2x4, as the New York area was.
Thank you. Margaret?
You know, since Monday, Food Bank for New York City has had a truck on the road. Tractor-trailer trucks have delivered food to every single borough. But as of yesterday, we had no water. The number one supply every community called us for, we did not have it. So I have to personally thank the governor for his leadership. These resources are needed on the ground, and because of today, we're going to get them out there. This morning, since 7 a.m., we loaded up our tractor trailers, and we have been on every single borough delivering food to the families who are desperate for it. Unfortunately, right now, hunger is very real for far too many New Yorkers. We will bounce back from this. We're New Yorkers, that's what we do. But we cannot plan a future if we're hungry today. So this donation from our great governor, Senator Schumer, governor's team, it's vital. And we are going to make the absolute most of it. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much. Again, we want to thank the food bank. We want to thank all the volunteers. We want to thank all New Yorkers who really rose to the occasion over these difficult days. We have more difficult days ahead, but we're going to get through it. One quick addendum, the fuel trucks that we discussed are going to be here this afternoon. They are en route. They'll be here this afternoon if people are planning to use them. Questions? Zach? Joe?
The L train, the tunnel there is actually flooded from wall to wall, ceiling to ceiling. It's going to take a while to get that out. It'll be sometime during the week. What was the other train? I couldn't hear the other one. The A and the C also. The A train will begin service Monday morning from Lefferts all the way to 168th Street. The C train, I will get back to you on our technical briefing later on. Thanks.
The shortage, there's an entire fuel delivery system. And we had issues on every aspect of the system, basically. The biggest bottleneck was the Coast Guard closed the harbor. The tankers couldn't get in. The Coast Guard reopened the harbor yesterday. The tankers now needed to get to the destination. When they get to the terminal has to be operational. Some terminals didn't have power. Some pipelines actually had a rupture. So there were a number of issues that had to be overcome. The flow has resumed, pardon the pun. It's literally true in this case. Plus, these mobile trucks are going to be bringing up fuel immediately. So you will see, beginning today, you'll see an increase in the supply. Laura? You know, Laura, I'm going to withhold judgment. My first point is the performance in Manhattan and the fact that almost all of Manhattan is back up is great. Manhattan is vital to the entire metropolitan area on a number of levels. Also in Manhattan, many of the lines are underground. And I'm happy we've done so well in Manhattan. I'm a Queens boy. And I'm also worried about Queens, and I'm also worried about Brooklyn. I'm also worried about the Bronx and Staten Island, et cetera, and Long Island and Rockland and Westchester. Now, in those areas, you have overhead lines. And what happens in a storm like this is the wind blows hard, knocks down a tree, knocks off a limb, it hits the line is down, the power is out. And that is a situation that has been dramatically worse in this storm. I understand that, but it's not a unique situation. And I want to make sure that from the consumer's point of view, the power is up as quickly as possible. I want to make sure that these companies were prepared for the storm and that they're doing everything that they can possibly do. And I'll withhold judgment. But, my basic point is these are entities that are regulated by the state. And consumers have a right to hold them accountable, right? Companies want the consumer to pay the bill. When the consumers don't pay the bill, the companies yell. Well, when the company doesn't provide the power, the consumers are going to yell. And I represent the people of the state. That's who I represent. And that's who I'm going to continue to represent. And let's see how they do. Let's see what the performance is. And then we'll have a judgment. Okay? One more question? Yeah. Yeah. Remember what happened with the subway system? The primary problem was the flooding then filled the subway system and the infrastructure, that elaborate infrastructure that we built below ground, which is a great asset. When a storm came and it flooded, overcame the banks, now that infrastructure was filled with water. So the major task was an unprecedented engineering feat of pumping the tunnels and the subways. Which has been done extraordinarily well, in my opinion. The MTA has also been doing all the safety checks to be sure that everything is 100% safe after the water has been removed. Thank you all very much. Thank you. And let's give another round of applause to all the volunteers for today. Thank you.